Welcome to Step Away from the Table, Beyond the Table. The podcast for pet groomers ready to start their next chapter. Let's explore what's possible when you trade in the grooming table for the freedom of virtual work. Whether you're done with the physical toll or just craving more flexibility, you're in the right place. We're staying in the pet industry, just shifting how we show up. So take a breath, step away from the table, and let's see what's waiting for you on the other side.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Step Away from the Table, Beyond the Table podcast, where we've figured out that you're going to step away from the table and then we're going to decide what to do beyond it. And we're going to explore that. So, as always, I am your host, Riverly of Stepping Away from the Table. And this is my wonderful co host, Jess of Groomer Support Services. And we're going to have a more relaxed chat, a more real chat today. And we're going to be talking about how we use AI tools to save time without losing our souls, right? Basically, so we don't allow Skynet to take over. So I figured it's kind of nice because we're going to give you a little bit of a behind the scenes look on how, grooming VAs integrate AI, without losing their identity. I know we've talked in other podcasts how AI is our support system. It helps us do things, but it doesn't replace us. So if you want to go ahead, Jess, and take over, I'm here for you, and I can't wait to add in my own 2 cents as well.
Oh yeah, gosh, we've covered a lot about AI, and I'm excited to kind of talk a little about the nitty-gritty, uh, to a little degree of what I love about my day-to-day use of AI. I kind of said before that I feel like some days I wake up and I'm like, oh man, I could not do this job without AI. And I say that only because my tolerance for like how much energy output I could bring it has decreased substantially. And this comes back to this identity shift that I had in my career of going from a groomer to a groomer VA. And we have a whole episode about that. For me, it was a journey of self-discovery and decompressing off of a workaholic attitude in life. And so some things like, for example, copywriting, which is essentially like the words we use to convey the messages we're trying to make. So that could be on our website in how we talk to our clients, social media posts, etc. That's not really my strength. Some of you may know this about me, but I have a terrible typer. I'll admit it. I pretty much talk, text everything. I have a handy little microphone here that I just talk to. So yeah, AI is really my supportive companion when it comes to writing and proofreading and making sure things sound good. And I can personalize a lot of aspects about that. But I'm curious, River, like back to you, like what is the main thing that you use day to day as far as AI in your work?
It's
Your
changed a lot over the
Mhm.
years. I mean, obviously, AI is it's funny because AI has been around for a long time. It's just now coming into day-to-day life of other people. I find working for things like the Savvy Groomer, I use ChatGPT a lot, mostly because for me, especially depending upon my mood, and being on the spectrum, I used to have a lot of scripts when I had my grooming business because I would memorize these scripts and I would use these scripts, for better for worse, because it allowed me to just say the thing, practice how I was going to say it so that I didn't really eviscerate that emotional capacity. And with Savvy Groomer, there is a lot of emotions because when you're coaching people, especially when I have people in my circle or one-on-one, I really struggle with, they're going through either really high highs or really low lows and trying to keep myself centered in a healthy way while, going through those journeys with them can be really exhausting. So, um, especially if I have one of my students who is particularly sensitive, I will ask ChatGPT, if I send this to somebody who is emotionally sensitive, will they take it in a negative way? And ChatGPT will give me kind of a thermometer reading. and it allows me to decide if I want to send that or if I really want to sit on something. On the flip side, if someone sends me something, I generally don't read context. So I will send it to them and I will ask them, do you feel that there's any subcontext to this? I mean, this actually helped me a lot in my personal life, for better or
Mhm.
for worse. I've had many family members that were unkind, especially as I started traveling more. They would get really kind of passive aggressive. And as somebody who didn't understand the subtext that comes with passive
Mhm.
aggressiveness, I used that a lot to understand what they meant, and how to deal with it. And
Mhm.
then therapy, of course, helps, which is not an AI tool, but who knows in the future it could be. Um,
Hey, sometimes I throw therapeutic questions at ChatGPT and it's really helpful, but
I think it's
uh,
good for getting
I wouldn't
perspective.
replace it. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
And I,
yeah.
especially in a moment where you're like,
Hmm.
I want to process this, but I don't
Hmm.
know how to. But
Totally.
I would say, go ahead.
It just for me sometimes will break the loop. I'm like, okay, I can calm down because I understand a little bit what's going on and I can sit on that longer.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because a lot of the things that I didn't have time to deal with
Mhm.
emotionally when I was in a grooming situation. Like I think about like all of the emotional things that I bottled up when I was running my grooming salon because I worked 80 hours a week and I had employees and they were emotionally dysregulated. And so
Hmm.
I had to like bottle things up and just kind of get through the day. And then when I was running my cat grooming business, I had more time to process things because I
Hmm.
wasn't working as much and I made the same amount of money, which was great. But I think about now, if I had had these tools back then, how different it would have been, and I would have saved so much time. But going back to what I use day to day now, I would definitely say between ChatGPT and Canva, I think those are, and again, Canva, if you guys haven't used it before, it's to create social media projects,
Hmm.
basically, and other projects. Like I use it for my slide decks. Um, but the AI, a lot of times, I'm not necessarily asking it to create things, but the AI aspect of Canva would be if I need photos. They have like the Canva Magic, which isn't awesome, but a lot of times they're much better than the generated images that they have for grooming
Hmm.
businesses. Like the free, no copyright images on Canva are often terrible. Like they're just
Yeah.
terrible.
Uh,
Um, or, it'll be something where, and I've spoken about this in the past, where I have a student who they just need something really quick. And I'd be like, instead of explaining to them how to do something, like let's say we're collaboratively working on, I like copy. So I like working with them on editing their website copy. I use ChatGPT to kind of help me align things. But like, something's wrong about this. Like, what's wrong with this? And I'll throw it in ChatGPT. I'm like, there's just something off. And it'll break down to me what's wrong. And I'm like,
Mhm.
so I know it's wrong. Now I know how to fix it. Um, and then I'll pop something into Canva. So there's just, I think those are the main two tools. And then we've talked about in the past note takers for um, meetings. That for
Mhm.
me has been such a game changer. I am not a note taker. Um,
Mhm.
a lot of times the way I write notes only makes sense to me.
Mhm.
And then also being able to hold students accountable if we're doing a meeting, where
Yeah.
if we do a one-on-one, um, and we agree, let's say they're going to create a goal and they want me to hold them accountable, then it's like, hey,
Mhm.
remember how you said this? And like, I don't think I said that. And I'm like, you sure? And it's okay to change your mind and to reframe a goal, but I think it's a game changer. I think that whole client communication, whether that is with a pet parent or with, if you're a VA, a supervisor, or with me, a coaching client, being able to have something not only record, but also give a transcription and give a summary for those people that are not willing to read a wall of text is such a game
Yeah.
changer, you know. I know I've
Yeah.
blathered on, but go for it, Jess.
No, I want to piggyback on this. It's beautiful because, my own neurodivergent special brain, spicy brain, you say, is like mixed with my talk to text, I'll often just like word vomit all my thoughts out on, and it makes it makes sense, but like you read it and you're just like, what, like, can you stop? Like, I get what you're saying, but can you make it more succinct? And
Yes.
so like when I'm really in a flow and I just want to word vomit for 5 minutes straight, I will take that transcript or voice recording, throw it into ChatGPT, and I'm just basically like, make the bullet points. Let's organize this. Because it's like in my head, yes, it's all organized. It's just not coming out as well as it could be. And so these tools really help me break it down. I know there's other tools like Grammarly that can
Yes.
help with these things. ChatGPT helps with these things. All the copy help that we
Yes.
talked about. Are there any else that you think of
Well,
the word
I
ones?
I will add in like Grammarly as somebody
Hmm.
who's dyslexic, and
Hmm.
even though my mom was an English teacher most of her life, I think again, like you said, for me, writing, like verbally, I can speak very well. My grammar is not perfect, but it's much better when I'm speaking versus when I'm typing. And
Hmm.
that's something I've noticed. So Grammarly would be like, "Is this what you mean?" And I'd be like, "Yes." Or I will not finish typing a sentence and I will start a second sentence because my brain is going faster than my fingers can. So,
That's it for me. Yeah.
yep. So
Yeah.
1000%. But I think even if we rattled off like 1,000 ones, like I used to use Zapier a lot more. Have you ever used Zapier before? It
Oh
basically,
yeah.
yeah,
Huge fan. We'll talk about that.
I don't use that as much because I think there's more integration between things.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
even then, I can get lost in things like funnels.
Hmm.
And those of you guys that maybe are just starting your virtual assistant journey, funnels are basically the order of which way either you want things to go, whether that is onboarding, how you want your clients to go, or if you're creating, like, let's say, a free marketing document, like how you want people to find it and move forward. It's like a workflow.
Yeah.
There's so many different things. I also really love maybe not AI, but for my brain, I like to use things like Trello. And I think that again, like I will use ChatGPT to help me organize my Trello board and be like, this doesn't make sense or this is too clumped together. How would you reorganize all of this?
Hmm.
And it would be like, why don't you do this? And I'm like, duh, of course, that makes it so much more organized. Because I think it's one thing when it's just you working on a project, but when you have to have multiple people who think very differently work on a
Hmm.
project, it does need to be organized in a way that other people can understand. And I think for better or for worse, ChatGPT or other AI systems are much better for that.
Yeah, agreed. I have my own version. I don't use Trello. I use an app called ClickUp, and I
Mm.
utilize Zapier more because I have a client retention program where I have all the workflows of like my clients entering, and then my ClickUp or your Trello. These are task management systems, so it's like where our to-do lists live, and so Zapier connects everything. So like the two apps for me don't communicate, so I rely heavily on that through the middleman app, Zapier, which is an AI system that will recognize, oh, when a new client books and it comes up on Dubsado, it sends the to-do tasks over to my ClickUp task management, which then I have my system very clear and organized over there. So I'm like, oh, more things to do, timely manner, everything's laid out. It makes everything easier. Although I will admit that this requires a lot of brain power. Utilizing AI to help organize these thoughts and these workflows are crucial, right? But it does involve a lot of steps and thinking and implementation as someone who's a groomer VA just starting out. Like we talked about this before, that being a VA isn't necessarily a quick money maker. I think understanding systems, me, the systems queen, of course, I would say that. But like you need somewhat of a process and organization behind that process, and that's not an easy fix, an easy, quick thing you could do. It's taken me working with several beta testers, through my systems to be like, okay, let's adjust here. So sometimes with like one action, I'll have 10 workflows underneath it, and I don't want to remember those 10 workflows. Those have become automatic processes that just
Work through
go
it.
on their will. Yeah, so I mean that's a little complicated, more
Yeah.
nitty gritty. That's maybe another
Yeah.
day, but this is an example. Time saving. That's what AI is here for us. Time
Abs-
saving.
Absolutely. I think it's mostly here, like you said, to support us and time saving. I think one thing that we don't think about as AI, but I rely really heavily too on my calendars. So everyone uses different calendars. A lot of people use Calendarly. I have on and off done Acuity. Acuity works really well for me, and that is for people that want to book things with me. And I really rely on that, especially when I'm traveling, because it figures out what time zone you are in, and then it adjusts for whatever time zone I am in. And
Mm,
so
I like that.
it really helps me because, for instance, if my phone is currently in Australian time and I had booked it or somebody else had booked it when I was in Eastern time, that's AI figuring all of that out, right? Because for us to figure it out between time zones and does this place do daylight savings time or not? I mean, it
Mhm,
is such a mess, whether you're traveling or even if they're in other time zones.
mhm,
I have had other people that I've worked with. One woman in particular, I adore her. We're now very good friends. And she lives in Greece. And she, at the time, didn't use any kind of scheduling software. And it made me crazy because
mhm.
twice a year we would miss appointments because my daylight saving times and Greece's daylight savings time is totally different times. Like it's like a week off. And so she'd be
Mhm.
like, "Hey, where are you?" And I'm like, "I don't know what you're talking about. Like we have another hour." And she's like, "Nope." And it was the daylight savings time issue because when she inputted it into her Google Calendar, it didn't adjust for daylight savings time.
Wow, that's amazing. And see, it's funny you mentioned that. I'm like, wow, that's such a great tool. I think I might consider integrating that. And I would write it down, except I don't need to because I have Fathom, one of the apps I love that we just talked about, recording this, and it will
Ah,
remind me exactly this point we brought up. Hey, Fathom, make a note about this, please. You
exactly.
know? And I
And
don't even need to shout that out. It's just going to recognize that that piqued my interest and it's going to highlight it for me, which is amazing. Like sometimes we'll have an hour conversation with a supervisor and it lays out exactly the main points that I'd be like, okay, we should definitely talk about this. Just in like a small statement. They're like, ah, that's important. And I love that.
absolutely. And even if it's funny because sometimes, and it's maybe it's something I'm a little nervous to admit this because maybe I sound crazy, but sometimes I will pop open a video chat and have an entire conversation with myself because I'm a verbal processor. And you
Hmm.
don't always have a person to let you word vomit at. And sometimes for me, and this really was before ChatGPT they have new systems that aren't quite right for the communication. But I actually used to pull it up and have Fathom on, and that's exactly what it would do. Is as I was verbally communicating with myself, I would pique an interest and it would just recognize that, which was so interesting
Hmm.
because obviously, and Fathom is not designed for one person, so it is kind of a pain because it's like, are you sure you want to keep talking? Like, aren't you like monologuing? You're like, don't judge me, you
That's so
know.
funny. I'm the same way. I've never used Fathom that way, but ChatGPT is my collaborative partner in so many ways, and I do this a lot. I talk to it and we process together. But when I want to bring it back to how this integrates as a groomer VA
Yes.
with supervisors and people who potentially want to be VAs, like what are we doing here? And the thing is, like, we want to keep it human in the
Yeah.
end, right? Like, we're using it as a tool. It's helping us save time, and it's a call. It could be like a dance, We're like, oh, um, help me build this, but I need to bring back my tone, or it's not quite catching it, so I'm going to end up writing it myself. But we've gotten there through a series of work together, collaboratively with AI. Um, I don't know. You have any thoughts about that, or maybe things that you're like, there's no way I'm using any AI for this. It's just this is me, pure me.
I think what's nice is that those are case by case.
Hmm.
Because I think a lot of times things I would be like, I would never use this AI for this. There's times where I'm like, you know what? Like I have definitely had a situation where like a coaching client has asked me to look over a client communication. And before I would be like, I'd never use ChatGPT because it can't replace me. But I've definitely put it in. I've done I've written down first my thoughts and what I've noticed, and then I would put it in and see how far apart ChatGPT and I are. And I will say, probably about a year or two ago, it was much further. And before I got the paid version, I
Mhm.
think too is much further apart. So I do think AI is growing and doing better, but I also think it's unethical to just take whatever you need to respond to and then just never look at it and never tweak it and never make sure that it's doing what it's doing. And
Mhm.
um, ironically, there's like a South Park episode where I don't know if he was actually using ChatGPT or just AI, but one of the kids was talking to his girlfriend, and he literally just would basically copy paste whatever the AI was putting in. And it ended up being this like really crazy conversation that he did me because we have to remember that AI is trying to affirm us. It's trying to give us what it thinks we want. AI is the ultimate people pleaser. So we have
Mhm.
to be incredibly, incredibly, incredibly um, careful. I love my little tangent, so I'll go on. Are you a Star Trek fan at all, Jess? At all?
Historically, childhood through my
Okay.
parents, but that's about it. Yeah.
So without going into characters, long story short, there was one of the characters he needed someone to basically come on, and they created an AI of the engineer who had created their ship. And I'm going to do this really quick. And basically, what happened is that person ended up having feelings. It was like an enemies to lover arc. And he fell in love with this person, but this person was AI, essentially, was an artificial creation of that person.
Mhm.
And what long story happened is that later he met that person, and that person was nothing like the AI, right? Because the AI is going to create the version of that person that best
Mhm.
suits what it thinks that you want. And so, as a person, we have to be incredibly careful
Mhm.
because when we're doing responses, we have to make sure that it is the response that actually aligns with our values, our policies, etc.
Mhm.
Because it can go one of two ways. It can either affirm you in a way that is not good for you, right? Like so it's interesting. Like I've seen people, mostly, students that we're doing one-on-one coaching with, and it'll be a situation where um they have talked to ChatGPT about personal things and maybe they're on a growth journey and all of these things. And it'll tell them basically to not ghost a customer, but to be more
Mhm.
harsh with that customer
Mhm.
because they need to be more harsh in their personal life. But that's not
Mhm.
actually good advice overall, right? Because it's not
Mhm.
that human nuance. AI is just going to tell you what you need. If you need to not be a doormat and step up for yourself and go, you go, girl, it could
Mhm.
accidentally tell you to do that with the wrong people because it's not a person. It doesn't understand the nuance between your
Mhm.
customers who need kindness and compassion and maybe a dirtbag boyfriend that you need to kick to the curb.
Yeah, and you just pointed on one of the major pros of having a groomer VA is that idea bounce off and like being the middleman to implement um good people pleasing boundaries. You know what I mean? I think innately that's what we do
Yes.
as VAs. Like, even if it's not a task, we can at least hear you out and kind of read the situation from our own experience. Like I've said time and time again, and you just keep saying as well, it's nuance, right? That's what sets us apart. And I see AI mess up a lot. I've talked about my chat channel. I call it like insert software that I love using, rewrite, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and sometimes I've told it numerous times, like, do not include the great, here's a rewritten version. Like I'm simply copying and pasting what I wrote in there. I don't want that to come up because it's easy to accidentally copy and paste it if you're just being mindless, which I'm not saying I do, but it just like I'm like, why did that come up? I've told you before, don't do that. It's just unnecessary. And so it is always important to check your work because AI does shift. I don't particularly understand why it does, and sometimes the answers are wackadoodle. It just
Yeah.
like we should always be checking our work because AI is not perfect. It's a tool, it's supportive, but it's not everything, which is kind of another big underlying reason why I don't think AI is going to replace groomer BAs
No.
for all these reasons. We have many episodes about AI at this point, go through
Yes.
them and get a thorough view of our analysis. But yeah, have you had any funny mistakes or weird things come up? You're like, nope.
Well, I've definitely had things where, I run the Savvy Groomer and it's definitely gotten confused. There's a grooming software that also uses the
Mm,
word savvy and it got confused. And so it gave me an answer of how about software. And I was like, this is not true. And I had to correct it. And of course, it
mhm,
doubled down. And I was like, this is really difficult.
mhm,
But honestly, I think it's really tough. And I think we've kind of, and you guys should definitely check out our other episodes that we've done about AI. But I think it's really important that AI sometimes misses the mark, right? My son has found, so one of the things he does because he's homeschooled is he will, once he's written something, he has to throw it through ChatGPT because it gives him real time, examples of how to do things better. And my mom, as an English teacher, hates that, but it helps because then when he writes it, it says like, "Oh, this is the grammar you didn't do," or this or that. But there's been times where it was completely wrong about a historical fact, like totally wrong, like
mhm,
got the dates wrong and who was involved in the conflict. And I think those are really strong examples of where AI can miss the mark. And for better or for worse, in a potential time of, I don't want to use the word misinformation, but you've got to be really careful and make sure not just the tone and things like that, but if you're going to use it as a research tool,
mhm,
that you actually read the sources that it gives you. Because a lot of
mhm.
times it'll skim it. And again, just the same as something might say toenail clippers instead of grooming clippers, it might actually get the wrong inference of it. And that could really screw you guys over if you're using it as a tool to kind of accidentally, I want to say be lazy, but it's like some of the book reports that people used to have when they would like ask it to like do a book report for like Catcher in the Rye. And it gave like
Mhm.
all about wheat fields and things like that,
Yeah.
And obviously now
Yeah.
it's better, but
Yeah.
you don't know when things are going to make silly mistakes like that.
Yeah. It's good to go in with the right mindset and expectations. It's collaborative. It's not to be relied on 100%. Um,
Yeah. And I think in the future, we're going to do more things about AI, I'm sure, because it's going to keep growing. And
mhm,
I think there's so many things that we could probably talk for hours about different ways that AI integrates into our business and little ways that maybe we don't even realize, right? Like, again, having the background moved in something like Canva,
mhm,
that used to be someone's almost full-time job, removing those backgrounds. Photoshop used to
mhm,
take hours and hours and hours to do that very, very
mhm.
carefully. And now it's a click of a
Yeah.
button.
Yeah. So amazing. So cool. And just like, going to trade shows for grooming to stay up on continuing education generally, whether it be in person or online based, keep learning about the different technologies out there. And that expands to all the roles, our supervisors, our groomer VAs, our groomers even, I guess,
Yeah.
maybe. I don't know how, as a groomer employee, this pertains to you, but AI is fun. Just keep learning about what's out there, like you can always build your own skill set and you find something interesting. Like maybe building images on Canva is your passion because
Yes.
it's a visual field and you can just become an expert in building images for social media for groomers. I think that's a wonderful avenue to go.
Absolutely. And that could breed then into social media. But
Mhm,
again, when you're using, let's say, ChatGPT or another copyright tool to
mhm,
write those, you just want to make sure that it actually makes sense and that the marketing
mhm,
campaign that it suggests is actually helping your supervisor
mhm,
or your own grooming
mhm,
business, right? I'm sorry, your own VA business where, social media and all of that is actually going to work. But I feel like we've
Yeah.
covered a lot of topics and
Mhm.
I think we could keep going, but I think this is a good place to stop. And like I
Yeah.
said, um, in Step Away from the Table, we have created a student Facebook group where we will start doing more things like actually going through the software. We're not doing it in the actual program because for better or for worse, technology grows too fast. So what we teach you guys today in 6 months may or may not be accurate. So if you are a student of Step Away from the Table, our VA
Mhm.
program, we will have those resources. As we grow, they will continue to grow. And as they change, we will do our best to update them because for better or for worse, I don't think we've ever been in a time where this technology is growing so fast right now, like crazy fast.
Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to provide a service for my clients, and I'm saying in particular to groomer VAs about teaching about the different software stuff out there. But it is so ever changing. I'm just like, ugh, that's just way too much work. I'll be updating that weekly. And it's just
You
like
would.
I think of the Facebook group as like updates. Real time is a really helpful resource in that regard.
Absolutely. So, as always, guys, we really appreciate you guys being here. And
Mhm.
this was the Step Away from the Table, Beyond the Table podcast. And again, this is for people that have stepped away from the table and now it's time to explore beyond it. This particular podcast was all about real talk, how AI tools save you time without, losing your soul or losing your mind, right? And it's been a behind the scenes specifically geared towards VAs in the grooming industry. And we just had a fun, exciting chat about this. And as always, I'm your host, River Lee of The Savvy Groomer and Step Away from the Table with my wonderful co host, the System Queens, Jess of Groomer Support Services. Now, Jess, if people want to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, my business branding is all groomer support services. So you can follow that through to the website as well as socials. And I do offer a discovery call if you want to chat with me about what works for you.
Excellent. All right, guys. So, as always, happy grooming.
Cheers.
Thanks for joining me on Step Away from the Table, Beyond the Table. If today's episode sparked something in you, don't forget to follow, share, or leave a review. It helps more groomers like you find their next step. You don't have to do this alone, but you get to do it your way. Until next time, take a deep breath and keep moving forward.